I have extensively explored every facet of Slavic mythology, uncovering the full, definitive roster of its enigmatic beings. Here is the ultimate, all-encompassing list of every single mythic entity. We start off with the supreme deity that is Perun. In the beginning, before the world knew order, there was only a void of chaos, and from this swirling maelstrom emerged Perun, the first and mightiest of the gods. His eyes blazed like lightning, his voice roared like thunder, and in his grip he held an axe that could cleave the heavens. No one dared challenge his dominion. From the highest peak he looked down upon the land, waiting for any who might oppose him. Yet there was none, for all feared Perun's wrath, knowing that his strike was swift and merciless, leaving only silence in its wake. But in the shadows another force stirred, Veles, the cunning god of the underworld. Where Perun ruled the skies, Veles claimed the earth below, weaving through the roots of the world, whispering secrets to the soil. His realm was dark, damp, filled with treasures and hidden knowledge. Veles envied Perun's throne in the heavens, and so, in the dead of night, he slithered upwards, intent on seizing power. He did not come with fire or fury, instead he sowed discord, stealing cattle, corrupting harvests, and luring souls into the depths. The skies trembled with Perun's rage, but Veles always slipped away, leaving Perun striking empty air. Yet from the flame of creation came Svarog, the god of fire and the forge. His hammer rang out in the cosmic void, shaping the world with every strike, breathing life into steel and setting the sun on its course. He was a creator, a bringer of warmth and light, but his fire was not without peril. Svarog's forge was a place of both birth and destruction, where the same flames that tempered iron could consume it. From Svarog's anvil came Dazabog, the radiant sun god, but also weapons of war, forged for battles yet to be fought. And so, under the glow of Dazbog's sun, the people flourished. He was the giver of life, the eternal flame that never dimmed, spreading wealth and prosperity to those who revered him. But Dazbog's light was coveted, drawing the envy of gods and mortals alike. His brilliance blinded them to the shadows creeping ever closer, for where there is light, darkness soon follows. Dazbog's gifts came with a price, and those who basked too long in his warmth found themselves scorched, consumed by their own greed. Mokosh, the earth goddess, watched over them all with a knowing eye. She was the weaver of fate, the spinner of life's thread, and in her hands the destiny of men and gods alike took shape. Mokosh's touch was nurturing, her embrace gentle yet firm, grounding those who walked the earth. But her favour was fickle, turning as easily as the seasons. Those who neglected her, who ploughed her fields without reverence, found their harvests barren, their homes empty. Mokosh's wrath was slow but inevitable, creeping like a vine to strangle those who took her gifts for granted. Amidst the turmoil of gods and men stood Svetovid, the four-faced god of war and abundance. He saw in all directions, knowing the hearts of warriors and kings alike. His gaze was unyielding, his sword sharp, bringing victory to the worthy and ruin to the arrogant. Battles were fought in his name, kingdoms rose and fell under his watchful eyes. Yet Svetovid's wisdom was double-edged, for he also saw the futility of war, the endless cycle of bloodshed and conquest that left nothing but ashes in its wake. Lada, the elusive goddess of love and beauty, was said to wander these woods, her footsteps leaving behind trails of blooming flowers and the scent of wild roses. But those who sought her favour did so at their peril, for Lada's gifts were as dangerous as they were desirable. Many a warrior had lost his heart and his life, chasing after her fleeting shadow, believing that capturing her love would bring him eternal joy. Yet Lada was never caught. Her heart belonged to no one. and those who dared to try found themselves lost in the endless maze of their desires, forever wandering, forever yearning. While Lada's touch could bring the ecstasy of love, it could just as easily sow the seeds of war. Her beauty ignited passions, and passions once inflamed turned to conflict. The greatest of heroes and the mightiest of kings had fallen under her spell, drawn into battles over her favour, only to find themselves ensnared in a web of betrayal and bloodshed. Yet Lada watched with a serene smile, untouched by the chaos she wrought, her gaze ever turned towards the next soul to tempt. Far above, in the swirling winds of the heavens, another power watched the world below with a cold, unfeeling eye. Strybog, the god of the winds, moved through the skies, unseen but always felt. His breath was the gale that bent trees to the ground, the storm that tore roofs from homes, the bitter wind that froze the hearts of men. Strybog was no gentle breeze. He was the force that drove ships to wreck on jagged rocks, that howled through the night, bringing terror and despair. Yet, in his fury, there was also a strange beauty, a reminder of the power of nature, indifferent to the struggles of mankind. But Strybog was not without his own conflicts. The winds he commanded were capricious, sometimes turning against him, whipped into frenzy by forces even he could not control. It was said that Strybog once tried to quell a rebellion among his own children, the lesser winds, only to find himself outmatched, his own power scattered across the skies. The struggle was fierce, and though Strybog eventually regained control, it came at a cost. His strength was diminished, and the winds, once his loyal servants, became wild and unpredictable, wreaking havoc without heed to their master's will. In the beginning, before the world took shape, there was Rod, the primordial god, the first among all beings. Rod was not like the others. He had no form, no voice, only the vast, boundless power of creation. From Rod's essence, the universe was born. The stars cast into the night sky. The earth formed from nothingness. He was the unseen force behind all things, the origin of life and death, the one who set the world in motion. But with creation came a heavy burden, for Rod was bound to the cycle of life he had set in motion, unable to interfere, a silent observer of the world's unfolding drama. Rod's influence was subtle, yet profound. Every birth, every death, every moment of joy or sorrow could be traced back to him. And though he was worshipped as the father of all, Rod remained distant, unreachable, a god whose very nature was beyond comprehension. It was said that those who sought to understand Rod's mysteries were driven mad by the vastness of his power, lost in the endless labyrinth of creation, where time and space had no meaning. On a cold, clear night, when the moon hung low in the sky, there was a figure who walked among the shadows, her face hidden by a veil of silver light. Chors, the lunar deity, moved silently through the darkness, her steps leaving no trace. She was the goddess of the moon, the one who healed wounds with her touch, who hunted the night creatures with unerring aim. But Chors was more than just a healer or a huntress. She was the keeper of secrets, the one who knew all the hidden things of the world, the truths that men feared to speak. Chors was not without her own struggles. It was said that she once faced a great beast, a creature of darkness that sought to devour the light of the moon. For days they fought, their battle lighting up the night sky with the flashes of silver and shadow. In the end, Chors emerged victorious, but at a cost. Her light was dimmed, and though she continued to shine, it was with a pale, ghostly glow, a reminder of the price she had paid. Then, as the winter snows melted and the first green shoots pushed through the thawing earth, there came Yarilo, the god of vegetation and spring. Yarilo was a figure of boundless energy, his laughter echoing through the fields, his hands leaving trails of blooming flowers and ripening fruit. He was the bringer of life, the one who turned the earth green, who filled the world with colour and song. But Eurylo's joy was fleeting, for with spring came also the knowledge that summer would soon follow, and with it the inevitable decay of autumn. Eurylo's life was a cycle of rebirth and death, of joyous beginnings and sorrowful endings. It was said that he was born each year at the spring equinox, only to die with the harvest, his body buried in the earth, where it would lie dormant until the next spring. But Eurylo did not go willingly to his fate. He fought against the dying of the light, clinging to life with a tenacity that defied the gods themselves. Yet, in the end, even Eurylo could not escape the cycle he embodied, his bright laughter fading into silence as the first frost touched the ground. And high above, in the vast expanse of the sky, there were the Zoraya, the goddesses of the morning and evening stars. The Zoraya were guardians of the universe, their task to keep watch over the celestial gates, preventing the forces of chaos from breaking through. They were sisters, inseparable, each carrying the light of a star, Zoraya Utreniaya, the morning star, and Zoraya Vechernaya, the evening star. Their light was a beacon in the darkness, a guide for lost souls, a promise that the night would not last forever. In the dim light of the hearth, just as the last embers began to fade, there was a flicker, a shadow moving too swiftly to be mere smoke. Some say it was a trick of the eye, but those who know the old ways would speak in hushed tones of the Domovoi. This household spirit, small and elusive, was believed to dwell in the corners of every home, watching, waiting, ensuring the house remained safe and warm. Yet the Domovoi was not merely a benign guardian. He was a spirit of ancient power, bound to the land and the bloodlines of those who dwelled within it. His loyalty was fierce, but so was his wrath. Those who disrespected the home, who failed to honour the old traditions, would find themselves the target of his mischief, if they were lucky. If they were not, the Domovoi's vengeance could be far more severe, as homes were plagued by inexplicable accidents, bad luck, and unending strife. And so wise folk left offerings of bread and milk, hoping to keep the Domovoi in good spirits, aware that their peace depended on the whims of this shadowy protector. Not far from the hearth, where the forests began to creep close, there lurked another spirit, one less tied to the home and more to the wild. Leshy, the lord of the woods, was a figure of both awe and terror, a being who could command the very trees to bend to his will. He was as old as the forest itself, his form ever changing, sometimes appearing as a giant, other times as a mere whisper of wind through the leaves. Travellers who wandered too deep into his domain risked more than just losing their way. They risked losing their minds. The Leshy was a trickster, leading wanderers in circles until they were hopelessly lost, all for his own amusement. But those who angered him, those who sought to exploit his woods without paying the proper respects, would face his full fury. Trees would come alive, their roots reaching up to trip and ensnare, while the very ground seemed to swallow those who dared defy the Leshy's ancient rule. Yet, for all his power, the Leshy was not without rivals. Deep within the rivers and lakes, where the water ran dark and cold, there dwelled Vodyanoi, the water spirit. With a body as fluid as the currents he commanded, Vodyanoi could be as still as a mirror, or as fierce as a storm. His realm was the water, and any who sought to cross it without his blessing did so at their peril. Fishermen who neglected to offer their first catch to Vodyanoi would find their nets empty, their boats capsized by unseen hands. But the most feared were those who drowned in his waters, for it was said that Vodyanoi would take their souls, binding them to the depths as his servants. And yet, like the other spirits, Vodyanoi could be appeased. His wrath turned to favour with the right offerings and the proper respect, but woe to those who forgot, for the river never forgives, and Vodyanoi never forgets. In the stillness of the night, when the air was thick with the scent of earth and decay, there was another spirit who roamed the fields, the Rusalka. These water nymphs, once mortal women who had met tragic ends, now haunted the places where they had died, their beauty both enchanting and deadly. The Rusalka's laughter could be heard on the wind, drawing men to their doom, for to meet a Rusalka was to be lost forever. Their touch was cold as death, their embrace inescapable, dragging their victims into the depths from which they would never return. Yet the Rusalka's curse was not without cause. Wronged in life, betrayed by those they had loved, they sought vengeance in death, their wrath as endless as the waters they now called home. They were both pitied and feared, tragic figures bound to their fate, forever haunting the places where their lives had been cut short. And then there were the Bannock, spirits of the bathhouse, whose presence was as unpredictable as the steam that rose from the hot stones. The bathhouse was a place of cleansing, of ritual, and the Bannock was its keeper. He could be a gentle spirit, providing warmth and comfort to those who respected the sanctity of his domain. But he was also capricious, his mood shifting like the water he commanded. Those who disrespected the bathhouse, who entered without the proper rites, would find themselves at the mercy of the Bannock's temper. The steam would turn scalding, the water ice cold, and those who angered him could be driven from the bathhouse, or worse, never seen again. Yet the Bannock's favour could be won with offerings of soap, water, and patience, for he was a spirit who demanded respect, but could also reward it in kind. Beyond the safety of home and hearth, where the wild things roamed, there was a figure whose name was spoken only in whispers, the Koshi, the Deathless. Unlike the other spirits, Koshai was a being of pure malevolence, a dark sorcerer whose power was as vast as it was terrifying. His immortality was his curse and his weapon, for Koshai could not be killed by any conventional means. His death was hidden away, far from his body, in a place known only to him, guarded by powerful enchantments. Koshai was a master of dark magic, a creature of the night who stole away maidens and challenged heroes, daring them to face him in his lair. But none could defeat him, for his death was unreachable, his power unending. Koshai's name became a byword for fear, a reminder that some evils could not be destroyed, only endured. And in the dark recesses of the earth, where the light of day never penetrated, there dwelled the Zmey Gorynych, a fearsome dragon with 3 heads, each more terrifying than the last. The Zmey was a creature of pure destruction, its breath a searing flame that could reduce entire villages to ash. No knight had ever faced the Zmey and lived to tell the tale, for each head was as deadly as the next, each strike as precise as a serpent's bite. The Zmey's lair was a place of death, filled with the bones of those who had tried and failed to slay the beast. Yet, for all its power, the Zmey was not invincible. Legend spoke of a hero who would one day rise, who would find the secret to defeating the dragon, ending its reign of terror once and for all. In the dawn's first light, when the sky was a soft grey and the world still held its breath, there was a sound, a melody that seemed to rise from the very earth. It was the call of the alkonost, a bird of paradise whose song could entrance anyone who heard it. This creature was no ordinary bird, for the alkonost was said to embody the very essence of joy and sorrow, her voice weaving these emotions into a song so beautiful it could break the heart. But the alkonost's beauty was both her gift and her curse, for she was bound to the earthly realm, unable to leave the world of men. Those who followed her song, driven by a desire to find the source of such beauty, often found themselves lost in an endless quest, unable to turn back, their minds filled with nothing but the haunting melody of the alkonost. The gamayun, a prophetic bird, perched on the edge of the world, her wings shimmering with the colours of dusk. Unlike the alkonost, the gamayun's voice carried not beauty, but knowledge, a deep, ancient knowledge that could reveal the secrets of the universe. Her words were a riddle, a puzzle that only the wisest could hope to unravel. She spoke of the future, of destinies yet unwritten, and of the past, of truths long forgotten. But her prophecies were never straightforward, always wrapped in layers of meaning, leaving those who sought her wisdom more perplexed than enlightened. The gamayun's gift was both a blessing and a curse, for to know the future was to be burdened with the knowledge of one's fate, unable to change what was to come. As the skies darkened and the storms rolled in, there was yet another figure who took to the heavens, the Strziga, a creature of the night feared for her insatiable hunger. Unlike the other spirits, the Strziga was not bound by beauty or prophecy, but by a curse that condemned her to roam the world in search of blood. Once human, the Strziga was transformed by dark magic, her soul twisted by a need that could never be fulfilled. She hunted the living, drawn to those who were weak or unprotected, her approach silent as the grave. The Strziga's victims rarely saw her coming, for she was a master of disguise, able to blend into the shadows until it was too late. But her curse was also her torment, for no matter how many lives she claimed, her hunger remained, driving her to an endless cycle of death and despair. But for all the terrors of the night, there was still hope, embodied in the figure of Mokosh, the earth goddess. Mokosh was a spirit of fertility and life, a nurturing force who watched over the fields and the hearth. She was the mother of all her presence felt in the richness of the soil, the bounty of the harvest, and the warmth of the home. But Mokosh was no gentle, passive goddess. She was a force of nature, her moods as changeable as the weather. She could bless a family with prosperity or curse them with barrenness, depending on how they treated the earth. Those who respected the land, who cared for it and honoured the old ways, would find themselves blessed by Mokosh's favour. But those who took without giving, who ploughed without offering thanks, would feel her wrath as the earth turned against them, leaving their fields barren and their homes empty. Yet even Mokosh's power paled in comparison to that of Rod, the god of fate. Rod was the weaver of destinies, the one who held the threads of every life in his hands. His presence was felt in every moment of every day, for he was the one who determined the course of events, the one who decided who would live and who would die. Rod's power was absolute, his will unchangeable. No one could escape their fate, no matter how hard they tried. Those who sought to defy him, who tried to change their destinies, would find themselves caught in a web of their own making, their efforts only serving to tighten the threads that bound them. But even as fate wove its threads, there were those who sought to unravel them. The Dola, spirits of fate, were said to follow every person, guiding their steps, whispering in their ears, steering them toward their destiny. The Dola were both guardians and manipulators, their influence subtle but powerful. They could bring good fortune, steering their charges towards success, or they could bring misfortune, leading them into ruin. The Dola's motives were often inscrutable, their actions driven by forces beyond human understanding. But for those who paid attention, who listened to the whispers of the Dola, there was a chance to gain insight into their own fate, to understand the path that lay before them. In the shadowy forests and darkened skies, there were spirits even more elusive, such as the Lel and Polovik. Lel, the Slavic god of love, was a figure of lightness and joy. known to inspire passion and affection wherever he roamed. Yet he was also a trickster, playing with the hearts of men and women, sowing confusion and chaos in the name of love. His presence was like the spring breeze, warm and promising, but with the potential to shift without warning, leaving those in his wake bewildered and broken. Meanwhile, the Polovik, a field spirit, was a more sinister presence, one who ruled over the fields at midday, a time sacred to him. Workers who dared to toil in the fields during his hour risked his wrath, which could range from minor pranks to severe injuries or death. The Polovik's power lay in his connection to the earth, his mood shifting with the seasons, a reminder of the dangers that lay in the natural world, ever present but often unseen. The Volososhar, a mysterious figure often associated with the stars. Some say she was a goddess, others a spirit, but all agreed that she had a connection to the night sky, guiding the stars in their courses and watching over the world from above. Volososhar's influence was subtle. Her presence felt more in the silence of the night than in any grand display of power. She was a guardian of secrets, a keeper of mysteries, her knowledge as vast as the heavens themselves. Those who looked to the stars for guidance would find her influence, though it was often difficult to discern. In the misty edges of the world, where the sky meets the earth in a seamless blur, there lies a place known only to those who listen closely to the wind. It is from this place that the Gamayun sings her song, a melody that carries the weight of prophecy and the whispers of the gods. Gamayun is not a bird of mere feathers and bone. She is an embodiment of knowledge, her voice weaving tales of fate and destiny that even the bravest dare not ignore. But her song is elusive, for those who seek her wisdom often find themselves lost in the labyrinth of her riddles. The Gamayun does not give her secrets freely, and those who force her hand may find that the truth is a double-edged sword. Her prophecies, while profound, often lead to unforeseen consequences, twisting the destinies of those who hear them into paths they never intended to walk. As the Gamayun's voice fades into the twilight, another figure takes flight, the Sirin, a creature of beauty and peril. With feathers as dark as the midnight sky and eyes that gleam like stars, Sirin is a harbinger of doom, her song so alluring that it drives men to madness. Once Sirin was a guardian of paradise, her voice a beacon of hope. But as the world changed, so did she, her song turning into a lure that led the unsuspecting to their end. Those who heard her melody would abandon all reason, following her voice until they plunged into the abyss, never to return. Sirin's tale is one of tragic transformation, a reminder that even the most divine beings can fall, their gifts turning into curses that haunt the world. But not all spirits are creatures of the sky. Deep within the earth, beneath the roots of ancient trees, dwells the Chuma, a spirit of pestilence and death. Chuma is no stranger to humanity's suffering, for she is the bringer of plague, her breath a poisonous wind that withers crops and snuffs out lives. Where she walks, the land turns barren and the air grows thick with the scent of decay. Chuma is relentless, her presence a harbinger of doom that no prayer or offering can deter. Yet she is not without purpose. Her touch, though deadly, is a reminder of the fragility of life, a force that keeps the balance by culling the weak and the sick. Those who encounter her know that they stand at the edge of life and death, for Chuma's embrace is final, her presence a grim reminder of the inevitable end that awaits all living things. In the shadow of Chuma's passage, there rises a figure of stark contrast, the Poludnitsa, a spirit of the noonday sun. Poludnitsa is the guardian of the fields, her presence felt most strongly in the heat of midday, when the world stands still. She is a stern protector, her eyes sharp and unforgiving, and woe to those who dare disturb the peace of her domain. Farmers who linger too long in the fields during her hour may find themselves struck down by her wrath, their bodies left lifeless among the crops. Yet Poludnitsa is not evil. She is a force of nature, her purpose to remind humans of their limits and the need to respect the rhythms of the earth. As the sun sets and the world is draped in darkness, another spirit awakens. The Rusalka, a water nymph whose beauty hides a deadly secret. Rusalki are the spirits of young women who died tragically, often by drowning, their souls bound to the rivers and lakes where they met their end. They are both mournful and vengeful, their laughter echoing through the night as they lure men to their watery graves. With hair like flowing streams and eyes as deep as the pools they haunt, Rusalki are irresistibly alluring, but their touch is cold as death. Those who fall for their charms are pulled beneath the surface, their cries swallowed by the water as they join the Rusalki in eternal unrest. Not far from the rivers, in the forests thick with shadows, dwells the Bannock, the bathhouse spirit. The Bannock is a guardian of the Banya, the sacred Slavic bathhouse, where he watches over those who seek its warmth. But the Bannock is no gentle protector. He is a capricious spirit, quick to anger if disrespected. Those who enter the Banya without proper rituals or who fail to honour the Bannock may find themselves scalded by hot steam or worse, dragged into the boiling waters by unseen hands. The Bannock's wrath is swift, his punishment severe, but he is also a teacher, reminding humans of the importance of respect and tradition. In the cold, desolate mountains, there roams the Leshy, the forest guardian. The Leshy is a giant of a spirit, his form as tall as the trees he protects, his eyes glowing with the light of the moon. He is the master of the forest, able to command the beasts and bend the trees to his will. But the Leshy is a trickster, delighting in leading travellers astray, causing them to lose their way in the endless woods. He can shrink to the size of a blade of grass or grow to the height of the tallest pine, his laughter echoing through the forest as he plays his games. But the Leshy's pranks are not without danger, for those who offend him may find themselves lost forever, their bones scattered among the roots. And in the heart of winter, when the world is frozen and silent, there is the Morozko, the spirit of frost. Morozko is the lord of winter, his breath turning the land to ice, his touch freezing rivers and lakes. He is both feared and revered, for while his cold can bring death, it also brings life, preserving the world in a state of deep sleep until the spring. Morozko is a stern, unforgiving figure, his icy gaze capable of freezing a man where he stands. But he is also a giver of gifts, rewarding those who are brave and kind with riches of frost-kissed beauty. In the twilight of the year, when the first snowflakes fall and the nights grow long, there is the Zmey, a dragon-like creature whose breath is fire, but whose heart is as cold as ice. The Zmey is a fearsome beast, his scales as black as the night, his wings casting shadows over the land. He is a creature of chaos, bringing destruction wherever he goes, his fiery breath laying waste to villages and forests alike. But the Zmey is not invincible, for he is bound by his own greed and pride, often falling prey to the cunning of those who seek to defeat him. In the stillness of the night, when the stars are hidden and the world is silent, there is the Baba Yaga, the fearsome witch who dwells in a hut that stands on chicken legs. Baba Yaga is a figure of both fear and wisdom, her crooked form hiding a mind as sharp as any blade. She is a keeper of secrets, a guardian of the ancient ways, but her help comes at a price. Those who seek her aid must be prepared to face her trials, for Baba Yaga does not give her knowledge freely. The Vilas, ethereal spirits of the mountains, whose beauty is said to rival that of the stars. The Vilas are dancers, their movements so graceful that they seem to glide on the air, their laughter like the tinkling of bells. But the Vilas are not mere entertainers. They are powerful beings, capable of controlling the winds and summoning storms. Those who cross them may find themselves caught in a whirlwind, their lives upended by the fury of the Vilas. But for those who show them kindness, the Vilas can be generous, bestowing blessings of health and prosperity. In the darkest hours of night, when even the bravest souls dared not wander, Strya emerged, a ghostly figure associated with the dead. His presence was a shiver down the spine, an unseen force that whispered of the forgotten and the lost. Villagers spoke of him in hushed tones, never fully sure if Strya was a mere shadow or something far more sinister. He was said to drift between the worlds of the living and the dead, drawing the unwary into his cold embrace. As twilight descended, the air thickened with a sense of something not quite day, not quite night. These were the hours ruled by Zarish, the spirits of twilight, beings who thrived in the liminal spaces between light and dark. Their origins were as nebulous as the twilight itself. Some said they were the first breath of dusk, others whispered of ancient curses that bound them to this in-between world. Travellers who dared to walk at twilight often felt a strange pull, a compelling urge to linger, to lose themselves in the fading light. But those who succumbed to Zarish's call found themselves trapped in an eternal twilight, never to see the light of day or the deep darkness of night again. In the shadows of misfortune there lurked a one-eyed spirit known as Liko. This malevolent being was the embodiment of bad luck, a harbinger of evil fate. Those who encountered Liko found themselves spiralling into despair, their lives unravelling thread by thread. But Liko did not merely bring bad luck, he thrived on the suffering it caused, feeding off the anguish of his victims. Whirlwinds danced across the plains, and in their midst Perelesnik appeared, a spirit of the wind, a seducer whose charms were as fleeting as the breezes he commanded. Perelesnik could appear as a handsome youth, his voice a soft murmur that promised adventure and passion. Many had followed him, lured by the thrill of the unknown, only to find themselves lost in a whirlwind of confusion and regret. Spring had always been a time of renewal, a season of life returning to the earth. But behind the blossoms and the warmth of the sun was Kostroma, a goddess of fertility, her presence woven into the very fabric of the season. She was celebrated with festivals where her name was sung and offerings made to ensure a bountiful harvest. Yet there was a darker side to her tale, a story of love and loss that echoed through the ages. Vesna, the goddess of spring, brought with her the promise of renewal and youth. Her arrival was heralded by the first blooms and the gentle thawing of winter's grip. She was a figure of hope, her presence a balm to the weary souls who had endured the long, cold months. But Vesna was not to be taken lightly. Her power was as fierce as the storms that swept through the spring skies. As winter tightened its icy grip, Marana reigned supreme, a goddess of death, winter, and the inevitable rebirth that followed. Her name was feared, her presence felt in every frost-bitten breath. Marana was the end, the final curtain that fell before the world could be reborn in spring. Yet, even in her cold embrace, there was the promise of a new beginning, a cycle that continued without end. In the heart of a forest, there stood a shrine to Zlata Baba, the golden woman deity revered and feared in equal measure. She was a figure of wealth and fortune, but her gifts came at a price. Those who sought her favour often found themselves caught in a web of greed, their desires twisted into something dark and insatiable. The wind had many faces, and among them were the Striboshi, the children or lesser spirits of Strybog. These beings rode the winds, their laughter echoing in the howling gales. They were neither good nor evil, but their whims could bring fortune or disaster. Farmers prayed to them for gentle breezes, while sailors cursed their tempests. Storms rolled across the sky, their thunderous roars heralding the arrival of Puzav, a malevolent spirit known for his mischief and malice. He was a force of nature, wild and unpredictable, leaving chaos in his wake. Puzav thrived on destruction, delighting in the fear he inspired. Beneath the still waters of a secluded lake, Vodnik waited, a spirit of the water feared by those who lived nearby. He was the Eastern Slavic counterpart to the Vodianoi, a being as ancient as the waters he inhabited. Vodnik was a guardian of the deep, but his protection came at a cost. Those who disrespected the water or ventured too close were never seen again, their souls claimed by Vodnik's cold embrace. In the tales of old there was none more feared than Tugarin Zmeyevich, a dragon-like creature whose very name sent shivers down the spine. Tugarin was a serpent of immense power, a beast that could not be tamed. His scales were as black as night, his breath a searing flame that scorched the earth. Many heroes had tried to vanquish him, but none had succeeded. In the heart of the flames there lived Plamen, a fire spirit as old as the earth itself. Plamen was both creator and destroyer, his flames bringing warmth and life, but also destruction and death. He was a being of duality, respected and feared in equal measure. And there you have it, every single mythological creature, deity, spirit and entities in Slavic mythology. If you enjoyed this content, you may like this video on how a brat prince became the Buddha